For over half a century, two names have ruled the skies: Airbus and Boeing. They weren't just competitors, they were the commercial aviation industry. Airbus, with its sleek A320s, A330s, and A350s, Boeing with its legendary 737s, 777s, and 787s. They shaped the rules, dictated prices, and built an empire so dominant, no one dared to challenge it. But that era might be coming to an end, because right now, halfway across the world, China is quietly assembling something that could shatter the longest-running duopoly in modern history: the COMAC C919, the C929, and a rumored C939. Three aircraft that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about global aviation. Airbus and Boeing's decades-long monopoly could crumble overnight. So how did we get here? And how serious is this threat? Let's dive in. It all starts back in the 1960s, the dawn of the jet age. Boeing rolled out the 737, a small, rugged jet designed for short routes. It wasn't fancy, but it was brilliant, simple, reliable, and cheap to operate. The aircraft made its maiden flight in 1967 and became a global workhorse, a machine that would go on to dominate the skies for decades. Europe, of course, wasn't going to sit back and watch America run the show. In 1970, Airbus was born, a collaboration between European nations determined to fight back. 2 years later, they launched the A300, the world's first twin-engine wide-body. But the real punch came in 1984 with the A320. The aircraft that revolutionized modern aviation with fly-by-wire controls and a fuel-efficient design. The A320 wasn't just a plane, it was Airbus telling Boeing, "We're coming for you." From there, the battle only escalated. Boeing answered with the 777, an engineering masterpiece that defined long-haul travel. Airbus fired back with the A330, then later the A350, while Boeing unleashed the Dreamliner, built largely from carbon composites. Each new release was faster, lighter, quieter, a constant arms race for dominance in the skies. For over 60 years, this rivalry turned into an untouchable duopoly. Other challengers tried, McDonnell Douglas, Lockheed Martin, but both eventually bowed out. By the early 2000s, the message was clear. If you wanted a commercial jet, you had two options: Airbus or Boeing. Until now, because in 2008, China quietly founded a new company, the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China. At first, nobody paid attention. Their first jet, the ARJ-21, looked like a regional experiment at best. But it was never about that plane. It was about learning, testing, building confidence for something much bigger. That something bigger became the C919. China's answer to the 737 and A320 work began in 2011. The first flight, 2017, and by 2023, it was officially flying passengers in Chinese skies. A fully functional, homegrown, narrow-body airliner, built to Western standards, flying real routes for real airlines. That alone would be a historic achievement. But China didn't stop there. They're now developing two wide-bodies, the C929 and the C939, designed to go head-to-head with the 780, a 350, and even the mighty 777. The C929 will reportedly come in 3 variants, carrying anywhere from 250 to 320 passengers. With ranges stretching from 5,000 to 7,500 nautical miles, enough to fly non-stop from Beijing to New York or Shanghai to London. And then comes the C939, the rumored giant. Early reports say it'll seat over 400 passengers and fly more than 7,000 nautical miles. That's right in Boeing 777 and Airbus A350 territory. Whispers even suggest COMAC is in talks with Rolls-Royce and GE Aviation for its engines, a move that could instantly make Western airlines pay attention. If all of this comes true, we're talking about something unprecedented, a country going from zero to global aviation powerhouse in less than 20 years. But here's what's truly shocking. COMAC isn't developing one new jet, they're developing 3 simultaneously. Think about that. 3 separate engineering teams, 3 massive certification programs, billions of dollars in funding, and the world watching closely. Even Airbus and Boeing struggle to manage one major program without delays or cost overruns. And yet, China is attempting 3. At once, skeptics say it's impossible, but the C919 is already flying, and that changes everything. Now let's talk strategy. COMAC's biggest weapon isn't just technology, it's price. The C919 reportedly costs around $68 million, far cheaper than an A320, Neo, or 737 MAX. That instantly makes it appealing to airlines in Asia, Africa, and South America, where margins are thin and budgets are tight. Brazil's Total Linus Aéreas is already in talks to buy several. Eurasia and Vietnam Airlines are reportedly considering it too, and that's just the beginning. Airbus and Boeing now face a terrifying reality. Not only could COMAC undercut them in emerging markets, it could do it fast. If COMAC secures enough global certifications, it could break into Europe and eventually the US, and when that happens, the duopoly collapses. But China still has hurdles. Critics argue that the so-called Chinese jets are heavily dependent on Western parts, from GE and Safran engines to Honeywell landing gear and Thales avionics. In truth, COMAC's aircraft are more of a global collaboration than a purely domestic creation. That gives Western regulators leverage, and they're using it. In 2025, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency announced that certification for the C919 could take 3 to 6 years. That means we may not see a C919 in any European airline livery until the early 2030s. It's a major delay and a big test of COMAC's patience and persistence. Still, China isn't backing down. They're doubling down, focusing on Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, regions hungry for affordable aircraft and less tied to Western. Manufacturers, make no mistake, this is not just about airplanes. This is about geopolitical influence. Who builds the planes decides who controls the airways, who sets the standards, and who dominates global trade routes for decades to come. COMAC's message to Airbus and Boeing is crystal clear. We're coming. And if they actually pull this off, if the C929 and C939 succeed, then the skies, once ruled by two titans, could soon become the stage for a brand new superpower. Because, for the first time in modern aviation history, the question isn't just who makes the best jet, it's who owns the future of flight. For over 6 decades, two names have dominated the skies, Airbus and Boeing. They didn't just build planes, they built empires. Airbus with its A320s, A330s, and A350s. Boeing with its 737s, 777s, and 787s, they set the rules. They dictated prices. They decided which airlines would thrive and which would struggle. For anyone daring enough to challenge them, the message was clear. Don't even try. That era is under threat. Halfway across the world, China is quietly building a fleet of aircraft that could change the entire landscape of commercial aviation. The COMAC C919, the C929, and the projected C939, 3 planes that could topple the longest-running duopoly in history. If they succeed, Airbus and Boeing might not just lose market share. They could lose their dominance entirely. But before we explore China's audacious plan, we need to understand the giants they're challenging. Back in the 1960s, Boeing unveiled the 737, a compact, rugged jet designed for short to medium flights. It wasn't flashy, but it was genius, simple, reliable, and easy to maintain. The 737 flew for the first time in 1967, and almost overnight, it became the backbone of countless airlines worldwide. Europe wasn't about to watch America rule the skies, unchecked. In 1970, Airbus was born, a European collaboration with a single goal, to compete with Boeing. 2 years later, the A300 took flight, the world's first twin-engine widebody. But the real game-changer was the A320. Launched in 1984, a plane that introduced fly-by-wire technology and modernized short-to-medium-range air travel. The message was loud and clear. Europe had arrived. The decades that followed were a relentless duel. Boeing countered with the 777, Airbus responded with the A330, then the A350. Boeing unveiled the Dreamliner. Airbus upgraded the A330neo. Each aircraft was lighter, faster, more efficient, a constant battle to capture airline loyalty and dominate the skies. And yet, despite new players trying to enter the market, McDonnell Douglas, Lockheed, Martin, Airbus, and Boeing's grip remained unshakable. By the early 2000s, the industry was a two-horse race, and anyone hoping to break in quickly realized how impossible it was until COMAC appeared, founded in 2008. COMAC quietly started plotting a challenge to the duopoly. Their first aircraft, the ARJ-21, was a learning exercise, a way to gain knowledge, train engineers, and understand the enormous logistics of aircraft manufacturing. But the real target was always the C919, a narrow-body aircraft designed to go head-to-head with the 737 and a 320 work on the C919. Started in 2011. By 2017, the plane had made its maiden flight, and by 2023, it was carrying paying passengers. China, a nation once considered a newcomer in commercial aviation, had entered the game, and it wasn't playing for second place. But COMAC didn't stop there. They're now developing two wide-body jets, the C929 and the C939, each designed to rival the Boeing 787, 777. An Airbus A350, the C929, is expected in three variants, seating 250 to 320 passengers, with ranges from 5,400 to 7,500 nautical miles. That means non-stop flights from Beijing to New York, Shanghai to London, or even Guangzhou to Los Angeles. Meanwhile, the C939 could carry over 400 passengers with ranges exceeding 7,000 nautical miles, a direct competitor to the Boeing 777 and Airbus A350. For decades, Airbus and Boeing have called the shots in commercial aviation. Airbus with the A320, A330, and A350. Boeing with the 737, Trip 77, and 787. They set the rules, shaped the market, and no one dared to challenge them. But that era may be ending. This is after news emerged that China is rolling out the C919 and the C929. As if that's not shocking enough, there is talk of an even bigger project, the COMAC C939. Industry enthusiasts agree on one thing: if these jets succeed, the duopoly that Airbus and Boeing have enjoyed for decades could finally be broken. The only question is, are we about to see history rewritten in the skies? Let's find out. Before we even go deeper into how China is plotting a coup that will most likely end Airbus and Boeing's unchecked dominance in the commercial aviation market, we need to first set the stage to help us understand how these two aviation giants have managed to enjoy such a long-gunning control of the market. To do that, we need to go back to the mid-1960s, when Boeing introduced the Boeing 737 narrow-body aircraft, fondly nicknamed the Baby Boeing. The 737 was designed as a smaller, short-haul jet to complement the aging 727. The engineering team borrowed quite a number of parts from the 727, with reports showing that nearly 60% of its components were lifted directly from its older sibling. The 737 would go on to make its maiden flight in 1967 with Lufthansa. Over the decades, the jet evolved through multiple generations and is still considered a serious contender in the short to medium haul niche. Meanwhile, Europe did not want to be left behind and was already burning the midnight oil as it sought to build a company that would rival Boeing. As the story goes, Airbus would later be founded in 1970. And just 2 years later, the A300 took off, the world's first twin-engine widebody. But the real breakthrough came in 1984 when the newly founded Airbus launched the revolutionary A320. This narrow-body airliner was built with one thing in mind: compete with the 737 and potentially outperform it in the market. The aircraft would go on to enter commercial service in 1988, and the rest, as they say, is history. In the decades that followed, these two companies went head-to-head and kept pushing the envelope, with each seeking to develop industry. Disruptive machines that would make airlines and operators scrambled to have them in their fleets. It was not long before this battle started heating up in the wide-body niche. This was seen starting in the late 1980s, when Airbus launched the A330 widebody. Versatile, fuel-efficient for its time, and technologically advanced than the A300. As you might have guessed, Boeing was not to be left sitting still. In the mid-1990s, the American aircraft manufacturer rolled out the Trip 7. This was an aviation engineering marvel that would redefine what was possible in commercial aviation, boasting a spacious cabin, long range, and impressive reliability. Airlines could not have enough of it, and it quickly became the flagship for international travel. By the 2000s, the rivalry between Boeing and Airbus was anything but subtle. It was clear that this was now a full-on dogfight, with each making significant strides in the market. The decade started with Boeing making the first move in 2004 with the 787 Dream. The plane maker marketed the widebody as a fuel-saving jet built largely from composites. It further announced that the new aircraft would be offered in 3 variants: the 787-8 for long haul, the stretch 787-9, and the bigger 787-10 for higher passenger loads. As expected, Airbus was not about to let this slide, so it fired back with the A350XWB. It further announced that the new aircraft would come in 2 variants, the A350-900 and the larger A350-1000. Clearly, the battle for wide-body dominance between these two was only heating up. It is important to note that this rivalry has not just been about new jets. Far from it, it's also been about giving proven workhorses a second life. For instance, Boeing has developed the classic next generation and the MAX series from the original 737. Equally, Airbus has redesigned the A320 into multiple other variants. In the wide-body niche, Boeing has taken the legendary 777 and pushed it into the future with the 777X, featuring folding wingtips, new GE9X engines, and a stretched cabin for more seats and range. Airbus also did something similar with the A330 in 2014, refreshing it into the A330neo. The new A330neo boasts quieter Rolls-Royce engines and aerodynamic tweaks, giving airlines a fuel-saving widebody without the sticker shock of a brand new program. Now, looking at this brief history, it is all there for everyone to see. Airbus and Boeing have been calling the shots in the commercial aviation market for more than 6 decades. As a matter of fact, a number of companies attempted to enter into this space with little to no success. For instance, McDonnell Douglas once attempted to revolutionize the industry with its DC-10s and MD-80s. However, by the late 90s, it was evident that the company was struggling and did not have the muscle to keep pace. Ultimately, Boeing acquired it in 1997. On its side, Lockheed Martin also dipped its toes in with the L1011 TriStar. To be fair, this was a technically impressive jet for that period. However, it never sold in the numbers needed to compete with market giants that were Airbus and Boeing. Lockheed eventually bowed out and refocused on military contracts. In the end, the exits by McDonnell Douglas and Lockheed Martin only cemented Airbus and Boeing's iron grip, leaving the skies essentially a 2-horse race. However, all that is set to change after China announced the launch of not 1, not 2, but 3 jets, and it has sent shockwaves throughout the industry. How does a country not known to be an aviation trendsetter exactly plan to disrupt the industry and position itself as a serious contender in the market? To understand how China has risen to the level of attempting an audacious thing as unseating Airbus and Boeing, we have to go back in time to 2008 when the country founded the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, popularly known as COMAC in Shanghai. At first, the company cut its teeth on the Arj to 1 regional jet. However, experts argued that this jet was nothing more than the company's way of finding its way into the industry and learning how to go about things in the future. They further argued that the big play was always the C919, a narrow body designed to take on the A320 and 737 hidden. Work on the C919 kicked off around 2011, with the aircraft making its maiden flight in 2017. What followed were years of flight tests before the aircraft finally won Chinese certification in 2022. By May 2023, the C919 entered commercial service, signaling China's determination to carve out a spot in a market long dominated by Airbus and Boeing. Although the C919 is currently the only COMAC aircraft in active service, the Chinese plane maker is also busy working on 2 other airliners, the C929 as well as the C939. So let us start with the smallest of the 3, the C919, and get to understand what it's all about. By now, it is evident that the C919 is essentially COMAC's way of announcing its presence in the narrow-body short to medium-haul niche, currently dominated by the Boeing 737 and Airbus, a 3120. With this aircraft, COMAC has decided not to reinvent the wheel in the interior. This means that we expect to see the new aircraft with the classic 6-breast seating common in short to medium-haul aircraft, giving it ample space to accommodate anywhere from 156 to 168 passengers. COMAC has also confirmed that the C919 will be offered in 2 variants, the standard model and the extended range version. The standard version is expected to have a range of about 200 nautical miles, while the extended range version will be capable of flying up to 30 nautical miles without the need for refueling. Also, key to note is that COM picked the CFM LEAP-1C engines. Does that sound familiar? You're right. That's the same engine family that powers the A320neo and 737 MAX. That translates to the fact that airlines will not be gambling on untested engine technology. At cruising speed, the jet flies at about Mach 0.785 with a service ceiling of nearly 39,700 feet. Moving over to the wide-body niche, COMAC is looking to rattle Airbus and Boeing by introducing the COMAC C929. It has gone further and confirmed that the aircraft will come in 3 variants in an effort to appeal to different market needs and preferences. Let us start with the first variant, which will also be the smallest, the C929500. This variant is expected to have a seating capacity and a range of about 7,500 nautical miles. This positions it in the field of the Boeing 787-8, as well as the smaller A330neo, the A33800. This also means that carriers that take ownership of the C92950 are better positioned to deploy it on trans-Pacific and transcontinental route. We are talking about routes such as Shanghai to New York, Beijing to London, or even Guangzhou to Los Angeles. Moving on, the second variant in this lineup will be the C929600. COMAC has confirmed that it will be capable of accommodating up to 280 passengers subject to specific carrier configuration and fly for up to 6,500 nautical miles without